So today is the last day of Isaiah, who has been with us forever. I've choked him, I've hit him, and I've hugged him. Please stand up. It's been so great to have you. He's been doing his social service here. I don't know if you know that students need to do that, which is great. How many hours? It's 400? Kind of around 400? 400 hours. So that's a very cool thing that the education system has here. His dream is to go to Germany and work. He does graphics work, animation. So let's all send good wishes that that's going to be possible. Our new person, Munz, is here, and she's going to be doing her social service work here. And then Isaiah's brother is going to be here with her. So she's our new person. So let's welcome her. Next week's presentation, Win as Much as You Can with Richard Deal. I don't know if it's Deal or Dial. Next week we'll be playing a game. This is going to be fun. We're going to be playing a game with a team of about 5 people in each team, trying to solve a puzzle of sorts. The instructions will be intentionally ambiguous. Well, that's easy for me. Although at the end, all will be revealed. It will require some standing up and small group discussion of your team's strategy in order to solve this. No personal information will be discussed or revealed during the game, but you might end up discovering some new things about yourself at the end. Please bring glasses. I know it's the age of us. Please bring glasses so you can read the instructions and a pen or pencil. If you wish to attend and observe but not participate, you can consider sitting in the gazebo. He says, take a risk and have fun. Richard Deal, PhD, MED, LAC, has been a faculty a member at State University of New York. He has taught neuralistic programming in 9 countries on 5 continents. He also has had a successful practice as a traditional naturopath and acupuncturist until he retired about 6 years ago. This is his 3rd winter he and his partner Gayla have spent in Ahi. So that should be a lot of fun. We're figuring out how to set up the chip so it'll be kind of easy to do. This week's presentation, Journalism and Democracy by Domingo Flores and Patrick O'Heffernan. What is the relationship between journalism and democracy in Mexico? It is more complicated than we might think in a country where 17 journalists were murdered last year. Seminario Laguna publisher Domingo Flores and Lakeside news editor Patrick O'Heffernan explain why journalism is so difficult and so necessary in Mexico. Flores has built the bilingual Seminario Laguna weekly newspaper into Lakeside's largest news organization, and O'Heffernan, who has trained states ahead in Europe on this topic, created and manages the largest English news site in Lakeside. Please join me in welcoming these two.
I think I just turned my microphone on. I did. Good. You can all hear me, right? Okay. What? Okay. Like Kat said, 17 journalists have been were murdered last year in Mexico. And one was actually attacked a couple of weeks ago in Sonora, but escaped the gunman. Journalism is a risky proposition in Mexico. Even one of Seminario Laguna's reporters was threatened publicly by the government, by one of the governments here. So you have to ask your question, why do we do it? I'm going to let Domingo answer the question about his personal drive, why he co-founded Seminario Laguna, and why he continually pushes the boundaries and the envelope for more journalism, more facts, and better journalism here. But I want to talk to you a little bit about why I do it. Journalism requires, or rather democracy requires journalism that is fair, timely, fearless, and accurate. Those are words that I gave in 1993 to a group of heads of state of the newly democratizing countries of Eastern Europe as they moved out of the what was then the Soviet Union. I was brought in by the State Department. I was a professor at the time, brought in by the State Department to teach a part of a weekend course on how to write a democratic constitution. And my part was what the relationship is between journalists and the government. Now, what I just said, you all know. You all know that democracy requires fair and accurate news. You've watched the emergence of unfair, inaccurate, and partisan news in the United States, and the subsequent threats to democracy that those media organizations, which we don't always call media organizations, have now created. Different people now have different facts, they have different worldviews, they have different sets of realities. If you watch Fox News, you have a different and, to me, vastly distorted view of reality than if you watch some of the network news. But if you watch the network news, you do get accurate facts. They have elaborate fact-checking operations to see to it. But because of the limitations of television and of journalism that are embedded, you get some questionable assumptions, and you only get a small view of the world. Now here in Lakeside, we believe that both the Mexican and the expat population deserve, as well as need, accurate journalism, accurate facts, in order to maintain the democracy here. Now, why? Well, let me give you some of the ways in which news protects, enhances, and furthers democracy here in Mexico, as well as everywhere else. As I said, these are examples taken from a lecture I gave in 1992, and they're more important now, I think, than they were in 1992. What we do, we journalists, what Domingo does and what I do, is based on a concept called the people's right to know. You have a right to know, in a democracy, what the hell your government's doing. Unfortunately, most governments prefer that they just be allowed to go do what they want and that you don't ask questions about it. The principle of the people's right to know in Mexico is a little shaky with governments. It's honored unevenly, and it's frequently dishonored or rejected by some of the federal agencies and state agencies and occasionally local agencies, because they think that our job and his job is to tell you what they want and not ask questions about it. We obviously disagree with them, which is why journalists sometimes get murdered in this country. So, how does news support democracy? First of all, it informs the people of what the government is doing. You all know that. It's the most basic function of news, is to report on the actions and the policies and the priorities of the government you elect. This is so you can voice your complaints and make your needs and wants known. And when those policies don't correspond to what the desires of the citizens are. And, if necessary, you can unelect the government that's not doing what the citizens wanted to do. Secondly, news informs government of what citizens need and want. Now, most of the time, people don't think about that one. But governments are large, complex organizations. Anybody here ever worked for a government agency? Yeah, okay. Federal, state, local? You had a hand up over there? Okay, all right. Well, to give you an example, Chapala has about 800 employees, and they're all divided up into several dozen offices, agencies, etc. Those offices and agencies don't always talk to one another, and the people in those offices and agencies don't talk to the citizens. There's a process called consultation that they're supposed to undergo before they undertake a project like, I don't know, cutting down all the trees in La Foresta. But they don't always do that. And as a result, we have friction. And anybody who's been watched the cobblestone arguments on Ocampa sees what happens when the people aren't consulted. So one of the ways in which the government finds out what the people want is that we tell them. We go out and we interview people. We write editorials. We do news stories. And they read it because we deliver the paper every Tuesday, I guess it is. Every Tuesday we go through the Ayuntamiento, the city hall down there, and we distribute newspapers. Yeah, right, they pay for those. All right, they don't get anything for free, all right, okay. So the channels of one of the channels of communication that the government relies on is us, journalists. because they may not consult with the citizens, but stories on the front page of the Seminario Laguna and Lakeside News hit it right in the face. They can't always ignore it. Thirdly, news is a check on bad government behavior. Now, like I said, governments don't always want people to know what they're doing because they act to protect their own interests, those of their employees, those of their donors, those of their friends, those of their families, and sometimes those actions run counter to what citizens want. That's what we call bad behavior. When they go off and do what they want to do, regardless of how it affects us, we're check on that. It's very difficult for them to ignore the invasions of the lake when we're out there every week with a story saying people are building stuff illegally in the lake. And if you don't do something about it, there's these groups over here that'll come and tear it down. So we're a check on bad behavior. But we're also a reward for good behavior. I mean, let's face it, governments are made up of people. You've all met some of them. You've gone down there and sat and paid your taxes. Maybe you paid for a parking ticket so you can get your licenses back, your license plates back. They're people, and they like to be rewarded. They like to be praised when they do something right, and sometimes they do things right. So, one of the points of democracy is to create a government that does good things for the people who elected it. We report on good things. I'm trying to think of a story we did about some of the good things that I'm sure one will come to me. We report on good things. And I've written editorials praising, for instance, Hocatepec, when it raised all the salaries of its police and it paid for the funerals of the cops who were shot on the ring road. They didn't have to do that. That was a good thing. And we said that. So when decisions get made, one of the decision points inside government is how is this going to play with the press? Are they going to say good things about us, or are they going to say bad things about us? Now, one response, of course, is to try to see that we don't find out about it. But the other response is to, let's do the right thing, and maybe we'll get a good story out of it. News tracks and it surfaces the good and bad corporate and private behavior that does affect government. Let's go back to the lake for an example here. I'm sure you all know that there are private interests, individuals, and corporations that are trying to take over parts of the lakeshore. If you don't know that, you should be reading our series on that, because that does happen. We track that. We have a reporter, Sophie Mendeles, who's out there at midnight with the groups that are tearing down the fences. She's out there when there's a confrontation between the environmentalists and the property owners that can sometimes get a little tense. She's down at the Ayuntamiento pulling records to see if those concessions that the private owners say they have are really true. She's interviewing the people in our government. She's interviewing people in Conagua to find out why they aren't enforcing the stuff they're supposed to be enforcing. So we surface that bad behavior by private individuals. And one of the things we do occasionally is say, you know, there's a private individual there or corporation there who's got too much influence. And maybe we should find out why, which is why sometimes reporters get threatened. Next, news reveals the inner workings of government as it affects you. If you go to court, if you have a traffic ticket, or God help us, you get arrested for some reason, and the judge is arbitrary, the prosecutor tells lies, who are you going to call? Well, we're there watching, and we're going to report on that. We're the persons you're going to call. The journalists are who you're going to call. We track what they do inside. We don't always do it because there aren't enough of us, and we're adding more as fast as we can. But that's one of the things that journalism does to protect democracy, is that we track the ongoings inside the machine of government. We want to make sure that when the wheels turn, when the gears engage, it's engaging for you, not for them. We also engage citizens in democracy. You know, if you're not involved, it ain't going to be democratic. You want to vote? We tell you where, and when, and how. And more importantly, we tell you who's running. And we tell you who they really are, as opposed to sometimes who they think they are. We tell you about the rallies. We tell you about the party meetings. In fact, we've been running stories on the maneuvering that's now going on inside all the various parties, and I haven't done that chart yet, but I soon will. It charts all the parties in Mexico. The maneuvering that is now going on so people can put themselves in place to run for office in the political season that's coming up. And actually the political season is here. And we're already seeing chess pieces being moved. You may have noticed that the wife of the president of Chapala is now the head of his party. That's not a coincidence, okay? All right, so in general, the interaction between news and journalism and democracy is that we perpetrate the idea that a free people and a free press are the same thing. They're intertwined. And we have to continue to remind the government that that's how it works. You had 2 revolutions in this country in order to get rid of the royal government from Spain and create a democracy. And we continually remind the governments here, this is how it works. Now, how do we do that? He founded what is now the largest newspaper in Lakeside, Seminario Laguna, which is incidentally bilingual. We publish over 40 news stories. We publish over 50 photographs every week in our print edition, and even more in our online sites. We publish breaking news segments all day long on our WhatsApp feed. We have bureaus covering the municipal governments in Jocotepec and in Chapala, and also in the delegaciones in Ajijic, San Juan Cosala, San Antonio, Riberas. So we go out there and we try and keep track of what's going on and tell you about it. Now, like I said, Domingo is the co-founder and publisher, so I'm going to let him tell you about Laguna, Seminario Laguna, the newspaper, and its online versions, and how this came to be and what its mission is. But I want to tell you a little bit about Lakeside News. Lakeside News is a website and it's a process. We bring all of the news written by our Mexican reporters, and that's written in Spanish for Spanish readers, and we translate it in English, and then we rewrite it to New York Times style. And believe me, that's not an easy job. And we also do it for free. And we do it for free thanks to this organization, LCS, who helped us recruit volunteers who have some writing experience, some editorial experience, some journalism experience. We train them, and then we have a system by which they take those stories on Thursday nights up until sometimes fairly late, sometimes not. This time we got out at midnight, right? And we translate them, and then we have a proofing process. There's a whole team of proofreaders, and then we have a final rewriting process so that it looks and feels and reads like you're reading as close as we can get to the New York Times. Everybody on our translation team has a subscription to the Associated Press style book, and they use it. We have WhatsApp groups in which we debate. Do we say the president of Chapala Aguirre, or do we say the Chapala president of Aguirre, and does the comma go there, or does it go there? And many, many things like that. It turns out that translating from Spanish to English, and then rewriting it in American and Canadian news style is an art form. And it's when we're still learning. We've developed a style book of our own, a manual of our own, and we have Zoom classes to continually update ourselves. But the bottom line is that we provide all of the Spanish news in English for you. You want to find out who graduated from your local high school? We got it. You want to find out why there was a parade going down your street, making a lot of noise? We'll tell you. You want to find out what's going on at the bull ring next week? And for those of you who don't know, it's going to be a lot of fun down there. We'll tell you about it. We tell you the stories that the Mexican citizens, the Mexican neighborhoods think are important, plus what you think is important. That's why we exist, in order to give you the news of all of Lakeside, not just a small slice of it. Okay? So, the final product of all that is Lakeside News. Okay? It's a website, it's also a Facebook page, 40 to 45 stories a week, plus photographs, videos, and live streams. Tomorrow, no, next Saturday, we're shooting a cooking video. If you tune in maybe 2 weeks from now, you'll get an actual video of a famous chef making halacas, which are from Venezuela, and they're one of the delicacies of Venezuela. That's going to be lots of fun. It's Chef Elba, who actually was the host and chef on a national cooking show in Venezuela. So there's much more about this, and I could continue talking, but we've got to give Domingo an opportunity to really tell you what's going on. Okay, all right, because he's our co-founder. He's the editor and publisher of Seminario Laguna, and he had the idea to translate all of the Spanish stories into English. That was 3 years ago, and he convinced me to work for him for free and to pay him for the privilege. Very smart guy over here. All right. However, before I do that, I want to answer a question before it comes up, because it always comes up whenever I speak. There it is back there. You're going to ask that question, aren't you?
A question and a comment. You haven't mentioned anything about the federal government.
About what government?
The federal government.
Yes, we do.
Have you sent any journalists to the daily press conference of the president?
I'm going to let Domingo answer that question. Okay?
Because there are so many journalists from Guadalajara, several states, to confront the federal government. And the federal government investigate, even is against them. So
I'm going to let him answer that question, because that falls in the news, his news authority here. The other question, hold on, I'm still continuing here, all right?
Okay.
We'll do that at the end. But we will answer your question. I'm going to answer a question that I know somebody's going to ask or is thinking about asking, and no, we are not the Guadalajara Reporter. Okay. Somebody always asks that question. We are a separate company, we're a separate organization. We know the people at the Guadalajara Reporter, and we work with them. Sometimes we trade photographs, we trade news tips, we go to meetings they can't go to and give them notes, and vice versa. We have a long and affectionate relationship. He's known one of the reporters since high school. But we are not the Guadalajara Reporter. Here in Lakeside, we're much bigger than the Guadalajara Reporter. They publish between 19 and 22 stories a week in their print edition about Lakeside. We publish between 40 and 45 stories a week, because we are the Lakeside news. They are the Guadalajara Reporter. So we have different missions. We also are much larger. We have 10 reporters, 3 photographers, 4 columnists, 3 editors, a chief information officer, 2 digital content managers, plus ad sales, marketing, and design people, all that stuff. So we have the largest news organization here, which is not to say there's anything wrong with it at all. It's just that we spread out from Ocotepeque to Chapala, sometimes even go over the hill to Ixhualacan de Membrias, and some of the municipalidades south of us here. So we're the largest news organization, about 30 people altogether. We have 57,000 Facebook followers. That's a third of the population of Lakeside follows us. We have 450,000 visitors to our platforms every month. And we have a different mission. We actually have 2 missions. Our first mission is to give you the news, in English and Spanish, and to give it to you in a way that's accessible, that's as close to the New York Times as we can get it. Their mission is to give you the news in English that their editors think is good for, or not good for, but of interest to the Lakeside expat population. And they do a very good job, too. I hope I live long enough to be able to write headlines as good as Dale Palfrey does. But she's been doing it a lot longer, and I'm never as good as she is. We have a second mission. Our second mission is we want to be a good corporate citizen here in Lakeside. Last year, we donated 50,000 pesos to charity events here in Lakeside, which is probably why we didn't make any money last year. All right. So many of those were here. We're one of the largest sponsors of the concert events here at Lakeside News. We also sponsored events at La Cochera Couture, and we sponsored events at the Lakeside Little Theater. We were the largest subscriber to the DIF fundraising last year. We were also one of the largest contributors to Thrill the World Ahihic, and we gave them not only money but free videos, and on and on and on. We care about this community. He was born here, he was raised here, he knows people all over it. This is where we live, and we want to make it the best place possible. So that's our second mission, is to be a good corporate citizen. Now I will shut up and turn it over to Domingo, and he can tell you what's really going on. Domingo?
Okay. Probably my English isn't that great, okay? So take it with patience, okay? Okay, my name is Domingo. As Patrick said, I was born here. And 11 years ago, we decided to do a newspaper. I wanted to do a newspaper because I want to write stories. Right now, I have like 3 months that I don't write a story because I have to do other things in the newspaper. But we have a lot of other reporters. Okay, semanario, I keep there. Better? Yeah. Okay. See, okay. As I said, 11 years ago, we decided to create the newspaper Semanario Laguna. We before us was another newspaper in Spanish. People who lived here for 20 years or more, they knew it. It was El Charal. It was made by Héctor del Muro. This newspaper it becoming bankrupt because it didn't have much sponsors, and they were like 15 years in the business. After they getting bankrupt, the crowd there, all the journalists there, and the people, they co-found another newspaper without the owner, without Hector. They call it Redes del Lago, which is after Redes del Lago. The team, they broke up the team. So one of the team, they did another newspaper that was called Semanario Laguna. They were there like 1 year ago in the business. They were like owning a lot to the print shop. They were like almost ready to close in less than 1 year. Then I met Arturo Orteo, which was the reporter there, and we talked, and I decided to get involved in Semanario Laguna and change all what they got. The first thing I decided to do is to cut the publicity that was coming from the governments, that they don't let us to do our free speech, our free notes, because we were before this first year that they got the newspaper, they were receiving like not just for publicity, just money on it. So the first thing I got in is to cut those things so we can just talk as a free press. That was my first mission, to have a real news. I was tired to seeing the small towns newspaper that you just go and they just talk like beautiful things about the municipal governments, and you can get all these little newspapers around town. So I think Lakeside doesn't deserve that. We need to know the truth. We have the right, as Patrick said. So that's the first thing I decided. It was not easy, because we got a lot of debt and we got a lot of things, because it was part of the process, but we were like ready to work in publicity out of the government, to get publicity from the business, local business, from the institutions, people from here. It takes time. Right now, thanks God, we got a good team of publicity, so we got a very good sponsors of Semanario Laguna. And they believe in us because I I think it's the most important. I'm not afraid, and I say to the team, we should not be afraid to talk about the crime that is happening. A lot of when the Lakeside, I think 10 years ago, they has a very black episode here. We were like 1 year in the market as a very small newspaper. That two reporters that we got in the office, they were like scared. No, we don't want to report, and I said we just go and report. We just so everything came okay, but we never stopped reporting the truth. Okay. In as I said, that was my first vision. Just cut the publicity, become a real newspaper. It doesn't matter if we were like a small newspaper. I wanted that we have the same quality of the big newspapers that you can buy in the cities and national, and I think we are getting there. Yes. Right now, after all this, after 3 years, when Patrick gets into Laguna, we start developing projects, and we have grown a lot this year. We just double our staff of reporter people to do marketing. We moved to a larger new office in the main plaza. You have seen them in Colón, on Colón 19. Teamed up with LCAs to create Todos English Translation Team, which was the project that Patrick talked about it. It was volunteer people that translate the notes of the reporters of Semanario Laguna, so you guys can get them with a good translation, Google translations, and especially you can understand the perception. Is not the same that when we talk names, because in the local newspaper everybody knows everybody. But it's important. I was talking to Patrick, so the expat community, it really knows that it's just not a party. It's a conservative party. It's not just this woman, it's the wife. It's people needs to know, not just talk. And especially probably local people, when we see that name, we know their background, and we know that they've been in the government for 10 years and blah blah blah. But newbies and new Lakesiders here, they don't know that they've been in the power for 10 times, and they have promised that they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that, and they never do. So yes, we also. We launched a Lakeside News website, which I'm very proud of it. Well, I think Patrick and all the team, they done a great job. It's a beautiful page, and this year we also added digital content managers to provide everything we do in print, online, and more. Okay, I'm gonna as Patrick said, we are working hard to build a world-class team. Every one of the new staff is a member of the National Association of Hispanic Journalism. Every one of our on the staff received a Master Journalist training course with the former CEO of CNN. We are now being reviewed by the Reporters Without Borders for their seal of excellence in fair and accurate reporting. And as you know, we were voted for the best Lakeside this year in news and information, which is a very nice prize because it was given for the expat community, and we as a Mexican company. So thank you very, very much. Yes. I want to help the Mexican and expat communities work together and understand together. It's very important for me, so the two communities, they really understand and they respect, and we learn live with respect everywhere. But the respect, it has to come first. We need to understand tradition, the way to live, the thinking. It's very important to me to start from that point. Do you know this? And then we can talk about it and get a better deal for everyone. But it's important that you guys Lakeside get good information. As I said, I want to help the Mexican and expat community work together and bond together to help each other of them to understand the other and work together for a better Lakeside. Work with LCS on several projects, including the Neil James. Okay, we this year we also put Patrick talks a lot of the events that Seminar Laguna and Lakeside News it has a sponsor. We are working here with projects including the Neil James retrospective, the art exhibit. I have very good connections with. No connections. That's not a good word. Good relationship with the artists. So and I think it's very important to people know Neil James is part of. It's very important, and it's part of our mission too. We launched, as we said, the Todos English team, and to translate the Spanish stories into English. We also appointed an expert representative to the Day of the Dead Parade Committee. I was president for 3 years, and we organized the past Day of the Dead that you saw, that parade and everything, Semana Laguna, and with Patrick, we had an expat representative in the committee. Okay, so we want to support the arts in Lakeside. Okay, this year for Laguna, I say to everyone, is going to be our year of the culture. Laguna for several years we become like a news organization, just bringing news out. I think with the service of culture, so we are putting up a whole team for culture, so you're gonna see more culture in Lakeside, in Seminar Laguna, poetry, other things that people do in Lakeside. I think that's very important to give those people the voice, interview with artists, critics about the exhibitions, like get more involved in the culture part. So we are putting up a new team that is gonna be just in charge of that cultural part, because we just not want just another section in the newspaper. We just want a real project of culture there. So you people, when you read Lakeside News and you read Semanario Laguna in Spanish, you got the best information about what's going on in the cultural things in the expat and Mexican community. This year we're gonna go hard for cultural content in Seminar Laguna and Lakeside News. This is our project for this year. So. Okay, we want, as I said, we want to support the arts in Lakeside. Some people say it's really pueblo artístico instead of pueblo mágico. Yes, and I am always said, and there's a lot of truth in this art, especially the visual arts are woven into Lakeside, and I want to help them strong and healthy. To that goal, here are some things that Seminar Laguna has done. We published 2 stories on the new fine arts organization, one introducing it to Lakeside, and one of the reporters of its first art show. I don't know if I read it correctly, but okay, I will say it better like this. We published two stories of the new fine arts organization that they just got in the Lakeside, Lakeside. We also publish every week a profile of an artist or talented young people here. Yes, we're trying to put up their talent. Okay, and we live stream the government's visit, and we have a lot of things. That time is shorting. All what I said is that our future is to keep you with good information. We're just gonna work. We are not thinking right now we want to improve our quality, right? We just not want to grow more towns. We just right now this year, I think, these 2 years we're gonna increase our quality, and so you can get better news. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry I talk a lot.
You didn't talk a lot. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is, you raise your hands, I'll call on you, and I'll bring the mic so you can do that. I'd like I'd like it all to be questions. That's the format of our program here. I can see that there can be some controversial stuff. That's okay, but remember they're reporters, they're not government officials. But I think your question is about, are they reporting on the federal levels? So I'm going to start with you, and then I'll work my way forward. Keep this short, which I know is difficult for you.
Well, the question is that if you have sent a journalist to the daily press conference in Mexico City, they have been in Puerto Vallarta, several places around Guadalajara, where they investigate and bring it to the federal level to correct problems. And they have succeeded. For example, whatever you say here on the Lakeside might be a good idea to do.
Yes, we haven't we haven't sent one of the reporters to the daily press conference that the President of Mexico gives every morning. We talked about like 1 month ago, probably to send our reporter to talk especially for the federal property of the lake. But that's all right now in plans. But yes, we are very interested to also have national news and estatal news here.
Hi, planted question. What's the URL to get to the website for Lakeside News, please?
Yeah, how do we get to you? How do we get subscriptions?
Don't subscribe to Chapala Report or whatever. No.
LakesideNewsChapala.com will get you to the Lakeside News website. We also have a Facebook page, Lakeside News Facebook page. And for Seminario Laguna at seminariolaguna.com. There's a Seminario Laguna Facebook page. I think they can also sign up for the WhatsApp too, can't they?
Yes, no, the WhatsApp, yes, and it's free, yes. Yes, it's Semanario Laguna. We have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook account. And for Lakeside News, we got lakesidenews.chapala.com. And that's all. We also have our Facebook page. That's with all the news in English. For now, it's open for free. In the future, we wanted to close some content, but leave open the real important things. In like if we have I don't want this, but if we have a shotgun, you can see it there for free, like important news.
Okay. Well, you two want to come over closer to here because you're off camera now, so you can be.
Okay.
All right. Do not go to Lake Chapala News. Lake Chapala News is a fake website. The owner of that website steals our stories and also stories from the Guadalajara Reporter. So do not go to Lake Chapala News. We are LakesideNewsChapala.com. If you go to lakesidenews.com, you're going to find yourself on the website of a Florida newspaper, okay, which may be cool, but it's not us. So LakesideNewsChapala.com.
Okay, another question.
A few years ago, there was a website, Mexico Voices, out of Mexico City, and they were doing translations for the expat community in all of Mexico, about mainly of the federal-based news. Investigative reporters like Aristide was one of the ones really well known. It was, I thought, one of the most informative sites for an expat that I've ever seen. see. If you could, in your translations, if you could start bringing in some of those reports, they're excellent. They really open the door, and it would be wonderful to have those. I know that's a lot to ask, but there we are. I'm asking.
No,
That's not just a question, that's a request.
Well, actually, there are a couple of websites that do that. I have been in touch with them. They're all envious of us that we get volunteers to do it because they have to pay their translators. We may actually be able to make that deal, and also there's a possibility later on this year we might be able to do some trading with the Los Angeles Times too. So that's on our agenda, but as you say, it's a negotiation. We have used one of the writers from Mexico Daily News. We brought her in, and she did with me an excellent story on the berry production that goes on in Hocatepec, you know, the billion-dollar industry that's sitting over there. So that's on our agenda, and I'm glad you brought it up.
I'm subscribed to something called the Lake Chapala Reporter. Is that the same as what you said about the Lake Chapala News?
no, that's the fake, and that's the fake.
Which is the
the Chapala Reporter.
That's the fake.
Yes, please don't do that.
I will
For,
unsubscribe.
yes, for the reporters that go to the street, it's not just for me. It's their stories, their work. Someone is doing money from their work, and people is paying. Just don't subscribe. Get Guadalajara Reporter. We have different good Lakeside News, whatever, but don't subscribe to those. Those are imposters.
Yeah, keep in mind, you're paying for a subscription to stories she steals from us that you can get from us for free.
And they do Google translation. Sometimes they are terrible translations, terrible. So just run the voice and just don't subscribe there. Yes.
On your website, is there access to any, like this, especially for me personally, I'd be quite interested in reading the series on the white tents across the lake. Can you look, we're talking about, I think, the berry production. I can buy those in Maine, you know, at our local markets. So just curious, can we get that story, even though I don't know when it came out? Can we look it up? Do you have a search?
Yes, we do. The story's on our website now.
Okay.
And just, you can search under Hocatepec. And actually, if you go to our website, we have drop-down boxes, and you can drop down the box that says local news, drop that one down, Hocatepec, open it up, and there's a whole list of stories from Hocatepec, and that's one of them too. Or you can do a search too.
How long was that story published? I'm just curious.
I read 1 month.
Yeah, about a month ago.
Okay, so it'll be hard to find. Okay.
And we intend to do more in-depth things. I got a lot of comments on that one. For those of you who don't know, berries are the second largest export from Mexico to the United States and the world. It's about $1.25 billion worth of berries every quarter, every 3 months. And Hocatepec is one of the centers of that.
Is that a billion?
Billion.
We have a problem on our street that nobody in government has responded to, and it has to do with abandoned cars and trucks. Would your news organization be able to help us by a story or photos or something
We actually
like that?
published this week a note about abandoned cars. They got in the delegation. Right now they got an operative, so they can pick up your abandoned cars. Yes, so we published a note of it, and right now I think AGIC delegation is working on it. If you give them a call, right now they are doing that 766-1760. Or you just go by to the office and tell them, this is my street. I get this abandoned car, just take a picture, and right now they are doing that kind of job. So that's the time right now.
Which street do you live on?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Number of Posada. Okay, yes. I will say to the reporter, but if you can stop in the delegation, they are doing right now.
Yeah, to what extent, do you feel that you are being pressured now to not tell the truth?
I guess
Always.
Okay, several times, I think several times, I don't say the name of the president, but a president of Chapala, before he used to tell me like, Domingo, help me, and I say, how can I help you? And just, he wanted that we say news, he wanted that kind of help that we just say what he wants, that people, what he wants to say. He didn't like criticism. And several times, as Patrick has said, we have to pull out one reporter of one municipalidad here because he was taken to the office of the president. They would put a gun in his head. Yes, it was. I heard we have to move him. I have to rent an apartment out of there. That president is not from Chapala, so don't worry. It's from another municipality. It's not from Jocotepec. So we moved it. He actually is still working with us. He brought it here for that problem, and he right now he's reporting with us. But he has to leave his community because one story that he published without like about a story that he published with us. In Mexico, the press used to receive a lot of money from the government institutions. So with this president, it's good, but what good thing is that he just cut the money for the press. So we have to go and look for sponsors, for things to survive. That's why a lot of the newspapers, national newspapers and estatal newspapers that usually they have shortened their personal and things because they don't receive all that money that they used to receive from the government. That's why the speech of the new president is always against the journalism, because in Mexico was like 60 years ago that the journalists, or not all the journalists, but 70-80% of the press in Mexico, they will say what the president wanted to know, and if you don't say that, you just disappear. So right now those things are changing for a good and bad. I think I applaud the president that he decided it was not a good hit for the press, but yes, right now a lot of the big newspaper that they used to receive millions in publicity, they are not receiving right now. Yes, we have to work for it.
The pressures can be both overt, like have a reporter having a gun to the head, or they can be subtle. The City Hall publishes their annual budget with no numbers in it. That happens. So we then have to do what's called a transparency request. It's like an FIO request in the United States, Freedom of Information Act. So that takes us a couple of weeks, and we'll get back a comment saying, oh, it's too broad, we can't give you those numbers, and we have to go back and forth. So it's subtle things like that. Or maybe they'll say there's going to be a press conference and the president is going to lay out a plan, and the president gets here and he lays out a plan and then leaves, no questions. And you look at the plan and there's no details. So that it can be both overt and subtle, and our reporters are trained to deal with that, and sometimes they can and sometimes they can't, and sometimes they get guns put in their heads.
Yes, is Lakeside News Chapala.com the same as Seminole News? Is it the same thing?
Lakeside News Chapala.com is our website.
Is
It's
that,
the English language website.
and what is the Seminole News? Is that Spanish?
Seminario. Right. Okay, the Seminario Laguna, which in Spanish means the daily lake, that's the Spanish news site. So we operate two, we're bilingual. So if you want to read it in English, it's lakesidенewschapala.com. If you want to read it in Spanish, it's seminariolaguna.com. The print paper, we don't have any print papers with us, do we?
No.
Darn.
Now, I was wondering about that. That's pretty funny, you don't have the paper.
Yes, we have a print, yes, it's very important.
You can buy the print paper at El Torito and the Garage and Super Lake, and what else can we buy?
Yes, you can buy in Donuts, with both Pancho's Deli, Super Lake, La Huerta, and
West Tahiti.
West Tahiti. You also can get it in El Garage, in El Torito, and yes, in the little tienditas, the little stores around. But you can get it in the big markets.
Or they'll deliver it to your house if you're a subscriber.
It's a bilingual, yes, it's a bilingual newspaper, Spanish and English, and you can practice there your Spanish and English, yes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, too.
Thank you.